Welcome everyone to SaaScast, the podcast that talks you through the steps you need to future-proof your product, whether that's building the ultimate marketing team or taking your products global. Our guests will help you grow, scale up, and work smarter.
Let's talk about it like in terms of like really actionable terms then. Let's highlight some of the key ways then that Dealfront battle churn on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, obviously, we talked about the Brailsford project before.
Yeah,
Having that project is central to our company, and having these
yeah,
activities that are happening underneath it, they are in their own way kind of battling churn, right? Because we're all focused on, in essence, improving the customer experience to prevent churn down the line, right? So within that project, you've got kind of 10 or 20 things that various different departments are working. Probably the number one thing that we've done that's made this project simpler, before we even get down to the tactics, the number one thing that we've done is really hone in on the data that underlies this. So there's been a real concerted effort to produce the kind of usage data, the product usage data that we need to be able to see kind of where the gaps are.
yeah,
And once you have that, then you can start to make your big decisions on top in order to sort of improve that. So to give you a couple of tangible examples, we spotted that probably in the first kind of couple of months post-purchase, maybe this is before we've made these changes, in the first couple of months post-purchase, we were starting to spot that users were dropping off quite quickly. So maybe we would have 5 users, 10 users in an account for us, and maybe, 5 would just not really ever activate and then they'd be gone, right? And if you think about that in the wider perspective, all of that cohort that you started with, that 10, you've got to try and keep that number as high as possible, really, because as soon as that drops to 0, your chances of churn start to rapidly go up, obviously, right? So we started to hone in on what can we do to actually keep that usage right, and we kind of realized that you need to establish a productive pattern of usage early. So our kind of big gamble going into this year is like, okay, let's restructure a little bit in terms of how we work in CS, and let's establish an onboarding CSM team. So now we have people that are specialized in actually, the moment the customer comes through the door, what is the onboarding going to be over that course of like 30, 60, 90 days that establishes a useful pattern, a pattern of productive usage, basically, right? So that then when the customer is handed over from the onboarding CSM to their kind of permanent CSM, now we're working on value add. We're not working purely on just, here's where this button is, here's how to click this, here's what it will do. We're working on, now that we've established what the product actually does, how does it generate as much value as possible for you, and how can we kind of iterate on that over time? So it's kind of like a step change in terms of how we support customers. We also, I won't bore you with all the specifics, but we also have a mix, because of the merger that we've been through, we have a mix of kind of maybe higher paying annual customers and a lot of maybe lower paying monthly customers, right?
yeah,
What we know for a fact is that obviously annual commitments churn at a lower rate over time. One of the reasons for that within our own business is obviously it takes a while to establish that return on investment. So if you only sign up for a monthly deal and then you're with us for maybe a couple of months, probably not long enough to generate the return on investment you'd need to prove that you want to stay with us forever, right?
right,
Simple enough. But then we needed to find a way to build that into our system from the very beginning. So we kind of we expanded the discounts that we were offering to customers who would, instead of purchasing monthly for our lead fitter product, purchase annually. So I think the discount is now maybe like 40% for an annual deal, for example. Because we know if we can get you to come and stick with us for a longer time, you're more likely to extract the value, you're more likely to be happy with us, and therefore everybody will be happy in the end. So that again has had a meaningful and measurable impact on our churn in the end, because it gives us 2 pieces of value. Firstly, it means that we can have the customer for longer, meaning we have more opportunities to actually work with them as a customer. So rather than maybe we're going to interact with you twice and you're going to churn after 3 months, we've got at least 12 months we can work with you, right? But operationally for us, the more annual customers we have, the more that we can plan our resources appropriately. Because as anybody who's listening who has an MRR monthly kind of client-based focus knows, you can say whatever you want in your kind of planning. You can have whatever plan you want, but if a high-value monthly customer is about to churn, everything else is going to be put to one side so that you focus on that one. So the less of that you do, and the more you can start to be focused in terms of the customer journey as a whole over at least 12 months, the easier it is to plan for how do we make sure that the renewal happens properly? How do we make sure that this customer wants to stay with us, as opposed to in the monthly business where basically every day is renewal day, and that's a dangerous place to be. So
Yeah.
there's hundreds of these, but that's a couple of areas where we've kind of focused on and seen real measurable success.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love the like no one wants to be in a situation, do they, where they're just putting out fires all the time. That's the thing, isn't it? And I think it's when you stop putting out fires that you can plan for the future, can't you?
Exactly.
You can actually start building something.
Exactly that.
Yeah, it's great. All right, well, Mike, I'd love to go another. I could keep talking to you about this forever, but unfortunately, we are running out of time. I just wonder then if you could just, as best you can, advice to like new SaaS startups who kind of want to have a great, company culture, customer culture, customer centric culture rather, keep their churn down as much as possible. You could just reduce that maybe to like 3 key talking points, if possible. That'd be fantastic.
So customer centricity in 3 talking points. I think the number one thing, really simple, is that if it's a priority, declare it to be a priority and make that happen. It shouldn't be something your client customer centricity culture, whatever you want to call it. It's not going to happen by accident. It has to be something you declare, and you have to build the foundations of that and build infrastructure around it to make it actually happen in your organization. So if it's a priority, if you really mean it, if it's a priority for you to work with your customers in a certain way, make sure that gets pushed all the way through your client experience. Marketing, sales, CS, product, everything needs to be lined up behind the idea that you're going to serve your customers in a certain way to deliver a certain goal for them. And the reverse of that is, in the course of doing all that, when things go wrong, as they inevitably will, really important to avoid any sort of kind of blame game or anything like that. It needs to be a group of people who are all in it together, trying to tackle the problems of the day. And then finally, you just got to find a way to enjoy it as well. It shouldn't be a slog. If it is, then probably in the wrong game. We need to do something else. Those are the main.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of SaaScast. For more top insights from the leading minds in SaaS, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a thing.